You Gotta Pay the Fee is a raw, poetic urban epic tracing the rise and fall of Michael Sweet Boy Thomas, a light-skinned, streetwise poet born to poverty in Jim Crow, Mississippi. Raised among shame, racism, and survival, Michael sharpens his mind in silence and his swagger on the streets. As women and wealth chase him north to New York City, Sweet Boy steps into the underworld of hustling, pimping, and heroin, dressing like royalty, talking in rhymes and running game coast to coast. But the flash fades. Love turns transactional. Power brings paranoia. And the game always collects. Told in vivid detail across the 60s, 70s, and 80s, this is a cautionary tale of manipulation, addiction, lust, and ego. A cold game with no retirement plan. Chapter 1, Flowers in the Dirt. Part 1, Shells and Syrup, Mississippi, 1957. Odessa, age 18, living in her mama's shotgun house, working as a waitress in a whites-only bar on the edge of town. The day the drifter walked in was like any other, hot, cruel, slow, until it wasn't. The flies buzzed louder than the voices in Eula Mae's diner that afternoon. Sunlight slapped down on the red dirt outside, steaming it like pig skin. Everything smelled like iron, heat, and burnt bacon grease. Inside, the room ticked with a quiet kind of hatred. White men sitting at chipped tables, staring holes through every black girl that moved between them, and the girls pretending not to notice. Odessa didn't pretend anymore. 18, slim-waisted, hips like a grown woman's secret. She had skin the color of strong coffee with too much cream, lips that stayed glossed even when her tips didn't. She tied her apron high and walked with the kind of swing that made wives grip their men's wrists under the table. She didn't flirt. She didn't smile unless she had to. She was just trying to make it through the day without being touched. Her mama, Miss Hester, had been coughing blood again that morning. Odessa had mashed up some onion and salt for a poultice and prayed over it, but the woman was fading. The rent was due, the kerosene was low, and the only meat in the house was a can of expired Vienna sausages. So Odessa poured sweet tea for white men who stared too long and tipped too little. Then he walked in. Not a local. He wore the kind of city clothes that look soft but cost too much. Gray slacks, black shirt, unbuttoned at the chest with a gold chain dancing in the sweat. He had skin like molasses and eyes that didn't blink when they looked at you. No smile, no rush. Just walked in, sat at the bar like he owned something. Odessa felt him watching before she even turned. "Y'all got coffee?" he asked, voice slick with northern gravel. She nodded, poured it black. "You from here?" she asked without looking at him. "No, ma'am, I'm just passing through." He didn't say where from. "You always smell like flowers?" She blinked. "What?" "I said, you smell like you grow out the ground." He chuckled. "That honeysuckle kinda good?" She shifted on her feet. Her lips twitched. "Just a little." "Don't you got somewhere to be?" "Not till I finish my coffee." He sipped. "What's your name, Miss Flower?" She hesitated, then said, "Odessa, Odessa." He let it sit in his mouth like sugar. Pretty name for a pretty girl. She rolled her eyes but couldn't help the way her stomach flipped. Later that evening, she was on her way home when she saw him again, out near the barn behind the cornfields, leaning against the fence like a secret. She should have kept walking. Should have, but she didn't. "Where you headed, Flower?" he asked, low and soft like a Sunday sin. "Home. You look like you carry the whole house on your back." She laughed, bitter. "Maybe I do." He stepped closer. "I could help you lay it down." The moon was round and full and dirty above them. The barn smelled like sweat and hay and August rot. She let him touch her. Let him pull her dress up slow. Let him slide inside her with no name, no promise, no pause. It wasn't love. It wasn't even lust. It was something heavier. When he was done, he stood, buckled his belt, and reached into his pocket. Pulled out a crisp $20 bill, held it toward her. She blinked. "I didn't—" "I know," he said. but you earned it anyway." She took it with shaking fingers, tucked it into her bra, watched him walk away, didn't know whether to cry or smile. But she didn't forget. Not that night, not that bill, not the way it felt to be both used and wanted. Chapter 1, Flowers in the Dirt, Part 2, The Butcher's Son, 1957, Mississippi. Odessa's trying to hold her mama's life together while working 2 jobs. Her body's been used, her spirit's bruised, and her pockets stay empty. That's when Russell Maynard, the butcher's boy, sets his sights on her, and everything changes. There was blood in the corner of the bedsheet again. Mama coughed through it in the morning like it was breakfast. Odessa held the rag to her lips and pressed gently. "It's getting worse, Mama. Don't worry, baby," her mama rasped. The Lord still got us, but Odessa had stopped believing that a while ago. The Lord didn't pay the electric. The Lord didn't stretch rice. The Lord sure as hell didn't stop no man from climbing on top of you. She stood, rinsed the blood rag, and hung it over the line. The shotgun house creaked like bones in a storm. Tin roof patchy, floorboards split. The linoleum was curling at the edges, and the toilet chain broke twice a week. She looked in the icebox. 1 egg, a stick of butter, no meat. Her mama hadn't chewed anything solid in 2 days. "I'm heading to the shop," Odessa said. Her mama nodded with eyes half closed. She didn't ask no more questions these days. Didn't want to know how her daughter brought in money. Didn't want to know how she came home with torn stockings and silence. Maynard's butcher shop was hell, the kind of hell that didn't come with fire, just freezer burn and red hands. Odessa worked the back. She wrapped meat, long pink slabs of pork ribs, cow tongue, whole chickens with the heads gone but the necks still wet. She folded the white butcher paper like a nurse dressing wounds. Her fingers bled through her gloves, her back ached from standing, and Russell Maynard stared at her ass every chance he got. He wasn't even the boss, just the son, big and slow and fat-faced, hands always slick. He'd been watching her since her first day, said things under his breath, laughed low, leaned too close. "You must get tired being that pretty all day, your mouth always that shiny." "I like the way you bend over, girl." Odessa ignored him, or tried to. But when he started touching, a brush of the hand here, a smack there, her stomach started curling. Still, she kept coming back because her mama was coughing up blood. Because there was nothing else. The day it happened, the sky was gray. The shop was nearly empty. Mr. Maynard had left early to drink. Russell locked the front door by accident and said they had to stay to clean up. Odessa was in the back freezer restocking the ice trays when he followed her in. "Cold in here, huh? Back up, Russell. Come on now. You ain't got to act like you don't want it." He was close, too close. She felt his breath on her cheek. "Russell, I said move. You acting like a white lady all of a sudden. We both know you ain't that." She didn't scream. There was no one to hear. He shoved her against the wall. Her head hit a rack of frozen beef. Her skirt was up in seconds. Her underwear ripped. She kicked, slapped, twisted, but he was too heavy, too fast, too much. He grunted like a hog as he took what he wanted. It hurt. He didn't even look at her face. When he finished, he zipped up, leaned close, and whispered, "Ain't nobody gonna believe you." Then he walked out, left her there, shivering, bleeding, frozen with meat. Odessa stayed on the floor for a long time. She didn't cry, didn't shake. She just sat there, legs bent, underwear around one ankle, staring at a pack of pork chops through the plastic. When she stood, she found a rag and wiped between her legs. Then she walked out, never went back. Weeks later, she was sitting on the porch steps when she started to feel it. Her stomach flipped when she smelled cornbread. Her breasts felt tender. She was tired all the time. She bought a tiny notebook and circled the days. The baby was growing inside her. Russell Maynard said she was a liar, told folks at church she was fast, called her a yellow hoe. Mr. Maynard fired her, said they didn't need troublemakers, said she had a wild look in her eye, So that was it. Job gone. Baby on the way. Her mama still coughing red. That night, Odessa sat at the edge of her bed and pulled the $20 bill from the jar under her mattress. The one the drifter gave her. The one that made her feel wanted, even if it was dirty. She unfolded it, smoothed it flat, stared at it for a long time. You got one thing left, girl, she said to herself. You got one thing worth selling. And it had already been took once. She stood, walked to the closet, put on her tightest dress, red, shiny, cut too short, slid her feet into the heels she wore to Easter last year, brushed her hair up, sprayed perfume on her wrists, looked in the mirror. She didn't see herself. She saw survival. The bar was loud that night. White men smoked and played pool. Odessa walked in slow, hips swaying like a gospel tambourine. They looked, and she let them. One man whistled. She walked straight to him. $10, she said, eyes dead. 20 for everything. Chapter 1. Flowers in the Dirt, Part 3. Tight dress, fresh flowers. The night Odessa makes the choice to sell herself isn't about lust. It's about survival. Her mama's dying, her belly is growing, and the last thing she's got left is the thing men keep taking anyway. But this time it's on her terms. The dress hugged her like it remembered better days. It had once been bright red, a church dress passed down from her cousin Mabel and hemmed tight at the waist. But now it clung to her hips like sweat and shine from being ironed too many times with wax paper. Her perfume was a mix of borrowed talcum and floral spray from the 5 and dime. But when she walked into Nicky's tavern, all eyes turned. The bar sat on the edge of town, where the railroad tracks split the dirt like a wound. No black folk were welcome on the floor past 8 p.m., unless they were working. Odessa wasn't clocked in. She was clocked out of morals. The air inside was hot with cigarette fog and whiskey breath. The jukebox moaned out Ray Charles on scratchy vinyl. Dice clicked in the back, and old white men hunched over beers, talking politics and pussy. She didn't even flinch, just walked to the far corner and stood, waited. They looked. Of course they did. She was beautiful. Long legs, brown skin like polished chestnut, thick lips, high cheekbones, and a belly just barely beginning to round. She looked like someone famous from the neck up, and someone useful from the hips down. The first man who came over had on oil-stained jeans and a VFW hat. You lost, girl? She looked him dead in the eye. $10. He blinked. What? 10, 20 if you want everything. He stared at her, then reached for his wallet like it was muscle memory. You got somewhere quiet? She smiled without her eyes. I know a field. They did it in the bed of his truck. Rough, fast, silent. She closed her eyes and counted down from 50. After, he tried to touch her cheek. She moved his hand. He laughed, handed her a crumpled 20 zipped up, and drove off like he didn't just buy a piece of somebody. Odessa stood in the dark, smoothing her dress. She didn't cry, didn't even feel dirty. She felt relieved because she had something that still worked, something that paid. And for the first time in weeks, she knew she could buy her mama some eggs in the morning. That was the beginning. By the next Friday, she had 3 regulars. A week after that, 6. By fall, her belly had doubled and her body had learned to go numb on command. Her eyes no longer flinched when they whispered ugly names. She wore higher heels, bleached her teeth with baking soda, started carrying a straight razor in her purse tucked beside her Bible. She stopped calling it sex, started calling it business. Her mama never asked questions, just smiled with cracked lips and said, "Thank you, baby," when Odessa brought home bacon and cornbread and new sheets from the store. When the pain got too bad, Odessa found a man who sold morphine behind a dry cleaner, paid him in quarters and hand jobs. Everything had a price, even peace. On a cold night in December, Odessa went into labor on the same cot where her mother died. The baby came fast. No nurse, no doctor, just blood, towels, and grit. When it was over, she looked down and saw golden skin, light brown eyes, and a tuft of curly hair. He didn't cry at first, just stared up at her, blinking slow, like he already knew what kind of world he'd landed in. She held him close, kissed his forehead, and whispered, "Michael, you gonna be better than me." Chapter 2, Light Skin, Heavyweight, Part 1. A Boy Ain't Just a Boy, Mississippi, 1964. Michael is 7. He don't look like the rest of them boys in town. He don't talk like them neither. And his mama, everybody knows what she do, but he don't know everything just yet. Not all the way. All he knows is folks don't smile right when they see him, and the air got a way of sticking to him like guilt he ain't earned. Michael learned early that his reflection didn't belong. Not in the barbershop mirror where the colored men frowned just a second too long. Not in the schoolhouse windows where the white kids whispered behind cupped hands. Not even in the cracked mirror in his mama's room where she smeared lipstick and stared past him. He was too light for the black folks, too dirty for the white ones, too quiet for boys, too sharp for teachers. He didn't cry, though, didn't ask no questions. Just walked the red dirt road with a book under one arm and his chin tilted toward heaven like he was waiting for God to explain himself. They called him Bastard Boy behind his back, sometimes to his face. "Your mama take dick like communion," one boy hissed once, in line at the corner store. Michael didn't respond, just stared, blinked once. The boy backed up. There was something about the way Michael looked at you. Light brown eyes, thick lashes, face like a porcelain doll carved from coffee, that made folks uneasy. Like he saw the lie behind your smile, like he was taking notes. His mama worked late, always smelled like something sweet and something burnt when she came home. Her heels clicked too loud on the wooden floor, and she kissed him like she owed him something. Sometimes she'd come in limping, sometimes with money, sometimes with nothing. Michael never asked. He just folded her coat and rubbed her feet, and she'd fall asleep with her mouth open like she was still praying for better dreams. He didn't have friends. He had books. Found his first one under a church pew, Langston Hughes, The Dream Keeper. Didn't understand all of it, but the words curled around his brain and stuck there like molasses. Next was James Baldwin, passed to him by the janitor at school, an old man with one eye and a voice like gravel. "You gonna need this," he said, slipping the worn copy into Michael's coat. "The world don't like boys like you neither, but fuck the world." Michael read it twice in one night. Then he wrote his first poem. I got skin like confusion, eyes like a liar, words sharp as the preacher's collar, but nobody listening. Not yet. He folded the page and kept it in his shoe. One night he woke up to the sound of a man's voice in the house, low, slurred. He tiptoed to the hallway, peeked through the crack in the bedroom door. His mama was on all fours, face pressed to the mattress, biting her lip. The man had her by the hips. He was laughing. Odessa wasn't. Michael watched for 6 seconds too long, then turned, walked outside, sat on the porch under the stars, and whispered a poem to himself. Didn't cry, didn't blink, just whispered. Chapter 2, Light Skin, Heavy Weight. Part 2, Things I Ain't Understand, 1968. Michael is 13. He ain't touched nobody, ain't even held a girl's hand. But girls still like him. They smile, giggle, pass him notes, leave small things in his locker. He don't know what to do with it. He's still trying to figure out what it all means. The men at night, the way the teachers look at him, the way white folks speak his name like a curse, and all of it, it makes him right. Michael didn't have toys growing up. He had sounds, screen doors creaking, the wet slap of boots in red mud, the loose click of his mama's lipstick cap, the slick suck of something wrong coming from behind her bedroom door. He didn't talk about it, just listen, learned how to not ask. By 13, he'd grown into himself, tall enough to stop being mistaken for a girl, too quiet to be considered a threat. That made him dangerous. Teachers didn't know whether to praise him or watch him close. Other boys just left him alone. Girls didn't. He'd come back to his desk and find a bag of lemon drops, and a sandwich with the crust cut off, and a pencil with his name carved into the wood, and a library book he didn't check out. Never notes. Just gifts. He didn't understand why. Maybe it was the way he looked. Light-skinned, curly hair, always clean even when his clothes were worn thin. Or maybe it was the way he carried himself, like he was older than the yearbook said, like he'd already seen too much and decided to shut up about it. Or he never asked for anything, just nodded and said, "Thank you," and went on about his day. His favorite time was just before supper, when the sun dropped down slow and the world got quiet. He'd sit out back with a torn notebook and a half-used pencil, bare feet in the dirt, and just write. Sometimes it was about trees, sometimes about silence, sometimes about the things that didn't make sense, like why his mama never smiled when she came home, why grown men left her room without ever looking at him, why the pastor asked about her but never came inside, why white men in town squinted like he was out of place just by breathing near them. One of his early poems went like this: "Mama make eggs without salt, say the Lord will season 'em later. She don't eat though, just cough. She wear lipstick for men who leave their boots on." I listen. Sometimes I don't want to. Sometimes I think I'm not supposed to be here at all. But I am, and I got ears. He folded that page into a square and tucked it under the floorboard near the window. Did that with all his poems. Didn't want anyone reading them, not even God. One day, Miss Llewellyn, the black teacher from Jackson with the gold glasses and too many books, pulled him aside after class. "Michael," she said, "you ever think about being a writer?" He blinked. "Ma'am, you quiet, but I can tell you got stories in you. That silence you wear, that's full of thunder." He didn't respond, so she slipped a book into his hand. James Baldwin, The Fire Next Time. Take that home. That night, he sat on the porch and read 3 pages before the moon came up, and something in his chest started beating harder than it ever had. He didn't know what it was, but it felt like the first time someone told him he was real. Chapter 3, The Sweet Boy, Part 1. What They Gave Me, 1971. Mississippi. Michael is 16. The world done told him who he was, but the white girls told him something different. They didn't call him high yellow like the black girls did. They called him handsome, smart, special. They gave him things, new things. And for a boy who used to read poems under the porch light with no food in the kitchen, those little gifts started feeling like gospel. The first time a white girl gave him a pair of sneakers, Michael didn't know what to say. They were Converse All-Stars, white with blue laces, a half size too big but clean as sunlight. She passed them to him behind the gym, wrapped in a grocery bag like they was drugs. Her name was Shelby. She had freckles, braces, and a thing for colored boys she wasn't supposed to have. "Saw you wearing them beat-up church shoes," she said. "Figured you might want something fresh." Michael looked at the bag, then at her, then took 'em. "Thank you." "Don't thank me," she grinned. "Just wear 'em." He did, and everybody noticed. It started with shoes, then lunch, then a $20 bill folded into a note that said, "Buy whatever you want." By mid-October, Michael had in a wristwatch and a new jacket, and 2 pairs of jeans, a radio for his window, and a stack of poems he'd stopped hiding, because now people listened. Because now he mattered. The black girls didn't get it, didn't like it. They looked at him sideways in the hallway, sucking teeth, whispering behind folders. "That light-skinned bastard think he white now, acting too good to walk with his own kind. He ain't even that cute." But Michael heard all of it, and he didn't care. Because Shelby brought him new socks last week. Because Janine, the mayor's niece, snuck him apple pie during lunch and giggled when he recited poems about birds and broken glass. because Becky let him drive her daddy's station wagon behind the cotton mill and asked him questions like, what's it like being, mixed? Do you hate white people? Your mama really a whore? He didn't answer all of them, but he let her ask. The thing was, it wasn't just the sex appeal. It wasn't even about lust. It was about how they made him feel. Like a man, like he mattered. The way they looked at him with curiosity, with danger, with desire, made his poverty feel like a costume, like something he could take off when he was with them. He started writing different poems now, not about confusion, but about glory, about being seen, about what a bitch will do just to feel a minute of magic. By Christmas break, Michael walked the halls like he owned them, shoulders square, chin up, new leather belt, fresh cut. He still didn't talk much, but when he did, his words were syrup and sandpaper. Girls hung on his sentences like ornaments, and every time someone asked where he got that new cologne, or how he got a new coat, or who gave him that chain, he'd just smirk and say, bitches like candy too, don't they? That's when folks started calling him Sweet Boy. Chapter 3, The Sweet Boy Part 2, The Mayor's Daughter, 1972. Sweet Boy was 16, but he moved like a grown man. The white girls fed him, clothed him, praised his skin like it was holy, but none of them had him twisted up like Kayla, the mayor's daughter. Blonde, blue-eyed, devil-grinned. She came for him like she didn't believe in rules. And for the first time, Michael wasn't just Sweet Boy, he was hers. Kayla's car smelled like bubble gum, weed smoke, and brand new leather. She drove too fast, cursed like a sailor, wore her shorts high and her lipstick reckless. Her radio only played Al Green and Aretha. She claimed she didn't like white music, said it was stiff and lifeless. You ever been to Memphis, Mike? She asked, dragging slow on a joint. Nah, one day we'll go, you and me. Smoke dope on Beale Street. Buy a Cadillac. Drive past all these racist motherfuckers like we on TV. Michael didn't say much that day. Just stared out the passenger window, letting her words sink into his ribs like slow poison. She found him behind the school building, reading Webb Du Bois and scribbling in a notebook. He'd seen her before, walking loud through the hallways like she was daring someone to stop her. Cheerleader body, preacher's mouth, that look in her eye like she was bored with everything but danger. That day she just sat beside him, no invitation, pulled out a cigarette and said, "You Sweet Boy, huh? That what they say, you write poems, right? Maybe read me one." He didn't, but he liked that she asked. Their first kiss was in her daddy's garage, half drunk off stolen gin, surrounded by lawn chairs and campaign signs that said Mayor Danford for Mississippi. She grabbed his face like she was hungry for something no one ever fed her. He kissed her back slow, calculated, like he was deciding whether or not he deserved this. She moaned into his mouth and whispered, "I knew it." "Knew what?" "That I'd like how you taste." They met at night, secret places, outskirts, gravel roads. Sometimes behind her daddy's campaign bus when it was parked at the old mill lot. They smoked weed, shared secrets, fucked with fire in their bellies. But it wasn't just lust. They talked about leaving Mississippi, about New York, about Harlem lights and hotel balconies and satin sheets, about the game even though they didn't know what it was yet. Kayla said she loved money more than anything. Michael said he loved the way she made poverty feel like a dare. At school, they didn't speak. She walked past him like he didn't exist. But she'd slip folded bills into his jacket, leave mixtapes in his locker. Once she left a silk shirt wrapped in newspaper with a note. "You too fine to wear that dusty shit. Fix that." He wore it the next day. Michael still messed with other girls, took their gifts, took their time, sometimes took more. But Kayla was the one he plotted with. She talked fast and crazy, about stealing her daddy's money, about faking pregnancies, about poisoning her enemies. She wasn't just wild, she was strategic. She wanted power. And Sweet Boy, he wanted out. So they talked about New York like it was Zion, like it was already theirs. One night, riding back roads with the windows down and Isaac Hayes on the radio, Kayla rolled a blunt and asked, "You ever gonna leave Mississippi? Soon as I got enough to go, would you take me?" He didn't look at her, just reached out, touched her thigh. "You already packing, ain't you?" She smiled, that smile that meant yes. Chapter 4, Gasoline Dreams, Part 1, A Favor Ain't Free, 1973. Sweet Boy was still in Mississippi, but his heart had already left. Hunger followed him like a shadow. The gifts from girls weren't cutting it anymore. That's when Kayla started showing up with cash, little bills, folded neat like secrets. She never said where it came from, but he knew. And that's what made it dangerous. Because Michael didn't mind dirty money, so long as it ain't his hands that had to get dirty. He hadn't eaten that day. Last thing he had was a piece of dry toast and some black coffee he stole off the back porch of a church breakfast. He was 17 now, but his stomach still growled like a child's. The poetry came slower on an empty gut. Michael sat on the back steps of the schoolhouse, jacket zipped to his neck, chewing on a toothpick like it owed him something. A book of poems tucked under one arm, his notebook in his lap, empty. That's when Kayla pulled up in that baby blue Pontiac Bonneville, tires crunching gravel like bones. She hopped out with her hair pinned high, lips red, denim jacket too tight, and sleeves pushed up to her elbows. She always looked like trouble dressed up in perfume. "Get in." "Where we going?" "To get you fed, fool. Denny's," she ordered for him. Slid a 20 across the table before the waitress even asked for drinks. Michael stared at her. "Where you getting all this from, girl?" "Don't worry about that. I am worried." She stirred her iced tea with her straw, eyes lazy, voice low. "There's this man, family friend." "What kind of friend?" "The kind that's too old to be sniffing after me but does it anyway, and knows I could ruin him with a whisper." Michael didn't say anything at first, just blinked, then asked, "He touch you?" She looked him in the eye, then looked away. "Not like that. Not all the way." "But enough?" She nodded. Real slow. "He gave me money not to talk. And you giving it to me? You need it more than I do." That was the first time. A folded 20 slid across the table like a sin wrapped in kindness. And Michael didn't say no. Didn't ask no more questions. Because his belly was full for the first time in days. And his shoes weren't talking back to the pavement. Because her money didn't come with strings. Not yet. And he liked the way she smiled when she handed it over. By the third time he asked, "You tell him 'bout me?" "Hell no. He know you seeing me?" She laughed, soft and dirty. "He wouldn't know what to do with that truth, so why you helping me, Kayla?" She leaned in. Her breath smelled like peppermint and guilt. "'Cause you ain't like them other boys." "How you mean?" "They take 'cause they hungry. You take like you deserve it." Michael didn't know what to say to that, but he liked how it sounded. Like a sermon, like prophecy. They kept it quiet. Kayla handed him bills like secrets. Sometimes a pair of jeans, sometimes a 6-pack of beer and a pack of smokes, once even a gold chain. She never asked for anything back, not really, except his time and his silence. And when she leaned close and whispered her dreams about New York, he didn't laugh. He nodded, because he wanted out too, but the town was watching. The whispers grew teeth. "That boy got the mayor's daughter running around like a hoe, ain't right, a light-skinned bastard thinking he a king. He touching that white girl, he gonna end up strung up for graduation." Then one night it happened. Michael stepped out the barber shop, brushing hair clippings off his sleeves. Moon bright overhead. That's when a shot cracked through the air. It missed his head by inches. He dropped low behind a car and looked up just in time to see the shape of a man on the roof across the street. A rifle, a white face, the mayor. Michael didn't go home that night. He waited by the old train bridge where they used to meet, and when Kayla showed up, he was pacing like a preacher before judgment. Your daddy just tried to kill me. I didn't know. I swear, Mike, I didn't know. You sure you down for this? I'm down, no looking back. Say the word. Then pack your shit. We leaving. Tonight. She didn't flinch, didn't cry, just smiled with those wild eyes and said, I already did Chapter 4, Gasoline Dreams Part 2, New York or Nothing, 1973. Greyhound wheels kissed the blacktop. Sweet Boy and Kayla ride into Harlem with $20, 2 packs of cigarettes, and the kind of dreams that'll get you killed or crowned. But New York don't care where you from. It only care what you got to offer. And Michael? Michael had poems, hunger, and a look that made women wonder what it might cost to keep him around. The Greyhound rattled like it might break apart somewhere past Philly. Michael didn't sleep. Sat upright, eyes wide like a coyote in a new forest. Kayla curled up beside him, her head on his shoulder, hair pinned up, heels off, purse clutched to her chest like a pistol. They didn't talk much on that ride. What was there to say? They were runaways, one from power, the other from poverty that grinned like a devil with gold teeth. New York smelled like hot metal and piss. The moment they stepped off that bus, the noise hit them like a slap. People cussing, cars screaming, music blaring from windows 5 stories up. A man on the corner preaching about hellfire. Another man dancing in a mink coat with no shoes. Kayla looked spooked. Michael looked alive. This it? She whispered. Yeah, he said. Smell like a lie. Maybe. But it's ours now. They got a room in a roach-run motel in Spanish Harlem. Floor sticky, sink rusted, walls yellowed from cigarette ghosts. $14 a night. They had 32. Do the math. Kayla hit the bars. She wasn't tricking, not yet, but she knew how to flirt just enough to make a lonely man forget the time. She'd bat her lashes, lean close, and let the older ones buy her whiskey and pass her folded bills like secrets. Michael wandered, sometimes to the park, sometimes to the corner stores, but mostly to a rundown black theater on 125th and Lenox. It played blaxploitation films on a loop. Superfly, The Mac, Willie Dynamite, Coffee. He'd slide in with $1, sit in the back and study, not just the story, but the walk, the talk, the power. Those men didn't beg, didn't explain, didn't blink unless they meant to. And they called every woman bitch like it was a holy title. You gotta pay the fee if you fucking with me. Michael whispered it to himself walking home one night, the phrase curling on his tongue like bourbon. You gotta pay the fee. Fuck with me. Capital P. When Kayla came home one night with a slice of pizza and 3 $20 bills, Michael was sitting shirtless on the bed, finger waves freshly pressed, practicing his rhymes in the mirror. He looked up. Where that from? Guy at the bar. Didn't touch me. Just said I looked sad. Michael smirked. You ain't sad. I can pretend. She tossed the money on the bed. We need soap and socks and food and fabric, Michael added, stretching his arms wide. I'm sick of these poor boy rags. I need silks. I need furs, snakeskin, gold, platform shoes. You sound like a damn movie. Bitch, I am the movie. Kayla stared at him. He was changing, not mean, just more words, more ego, more presence. It unsettled her, but only for a moment. Because when Rachel came home with her from the bar one night, and she saw the way Rachel stared at Michael, open-mouthed and bewitched, that's when Kayla understood what she had. And that's when she fell deeper. Rachel had fake lashes, short brunette curls, and curves like the letter S. She was originally from California, Harlem raised, and fast. She pulled Kayla aside the second night they met and whispered, "That man yours? Yeah. He for real? Realer than you?" Rachel laughed. "Good. Let's make some money." Back in the room, Michael practiced his rhymes, shirt off, gold chain swinging. "They call me Sweet Boy, capital P. If you fuck with me, bitch, you pay the fee." Rachel clapped. Kayla rolled her eyes but smiled. Chapter 4, Gasoline Dreams, Part 3. Rachel's Game, 1973. Harlem. Kayla already knew how to work a room, hips like a signal, eyes like bait. But Rachel gave her the map, where to walk, who to talk to, how to make 'em pay without ever begging. She didn't turn Kayla into a hoe. Kayla already had the spark, and Rachel just gave her the flame. And with it came something else, too. A little powder and a folded paper, a shortcut to float above it all. That's where it started. Rachel smoked with her eyes half open and her mouth half closed. She never looked fully awake, but somehow knew everything happening in every room she walked into. She didn't smile much, didn't laugh unless it was cruel, but she had a way of making you feel like the world was full of shortcuts, if you could just learn to walk her path. "This ain't church, sweetheart," Rachel said the first night she walked Kayla down 125th just past Malcolm X Boulevard. "You walk the track like you mean it, chin high, chest out, eyes open. They looking for confidence, not just pussy." Kayla already knew how to dress it up. She wore her mini skirt tight, heels clicking like clock hands, hair flipped, nails painted candy red. But Rachel showed her the rest, which blocks were hot, which corners to avoid, what motels wouldn't ask no questions, where the sugar daddies live, how to charge extra for silence. "This the game, baby," Rachel said, licking her thumb and counting a stack of tens. "Ain't no rules but one, you got something they want, make 'em pay for it." Kayla caught on quick, too quick. Michael started noticing she wasn't coming back with chump change anymore. She had hundreds, new coats, shoes, even bought a bottle of champagne and laughed while they popped it in the motel tub. "This from one night?" Michael asked. "One man? Damn." She kissed him. "Told you I was born for this, but it wasn't just money Rachel brought. She also brought the dust. Not crack, not yet. Not the needle either, just small brown lines on a mirror, cut with a razor. "Don't knock it," Rachel said. "This ain't no junkie shit. This just a float. Take the edge off." Kayla stared at it the first time, wide-eyed like a girl about to jump off a cliff. Michael wasn't there. Rachel leaned in, held a rolled bill out like communion. "You trust me?" Kayla nodded, and then she snorted. The first time Michael saw it, he was folding his shirts at the foot of the bed, and Kayla was laid out on her back, smiling at the ceiling like it told her a secret. "What the fuck is this?" Rachel smirked from the mirror. "It ain't what you think. The fuck it ain't. She ain't banging it, just sniffing. Relax." Michael looked down at Kayla. "You serious?" Kayla just giggled. "Come float, sweet boy." He stormed out, walked 2 blocks, lit a cigarette, sat on a stoop and thought about how far from Mississippi they were, thought about the $20 bills, the silk shirt, the blaxploitation movies, the girls, the power, thought about the hunger. Then he walked back in, didn't say a word. Rachel had already laid out a second line. Michael stared at it, took off his coat, and snorted. It was soft, warm, like a whisper under his skin. The room slowed. The noise got quiet. For a minute, it felt like he was bigger than the city. That night, he stood shirtless in front of the cracked motel mirror, gold chain swinging, eyes low, hair pressed tight to his scalp and finger waves so clean they shimmered. "They call me Sweet Boy, capital P. If you fuck with me, you gotta pay the fee." Kayla clapped from the bed, half naked, grinning. Rachel lit a cigarette and said, "Well, damn, baby, you a star." Chapter 4, Gasoline Dreams, Part 4, The Business, 1974, Harlem. The motel room stopped being a shelter. It became a hub, a headquarters. The girls worked the tracks and Michael kept the books, if by books you mean a wad of cash rolled in a Crown Royal bag and a rotation of hotel receipts. They called their second room the office. That's where Michael made deals. Sold bags, smooth collars, practiced rhymes in the mirror like he was born under a spotlight. The game wasn't just survival anymore. It was a strategy. Michael didn't walk fast anymore. He glided, smooth like he was made of velvet and menace, finger waves sharp enough to slice fruit, a single gold ring on each pinky, heavy and gleaming like gilt, silk shirt open to the third button, slacks creased hard as sermon lines. He didn't carry a gun, didn't need to. The city knew his face now. They rented a second room 2 floors down from their original spot. Nothing fancy, just cleaner carpet and a door that actually locked. That's where Michael met clients, passed bags, counted bills. It had a broken rotary phone and an ashtray that never emptied. They called it the office. This where deals get made, Michael would say, reclining in the one chair that didn't wobble. Ain't no love in this room. Only math. Kayla worked quick. She'd start her walk around 7 p.m., hips lit by neon. Rachel took the later shift. Like the cold air and drunk clients, they never worked the same side of the block. That was Michael's rule. Split the shine, he said. Too much glow in one place make 'em blind. Rachel called him bossman now, sometimes to tease, sometimes not. Kayla still called him sweet boy, especially when he'd line up her bills after a long night, tap them into a perfect little brick, and say, "See, bitch, this how queens live." The money came in fast, and it went out just as fast. When heroin to flip a silk shirts, silk platform shoes from Fulton Street, when gold chains, the kind that don't jingle, just clanking club entry fees and motel fees, in bail fees once, when Rachel smacked the cop who grabbed her tit. Michael never walked out the door looking broke. That was the rule. The world only believe what it can see, he'd say, checking his collar in the mirror. So I show him greatness. Every bitch, every block, every breath, all of it got to scream sweet boy. His rhymes got sharper. No more soft verses about birds or broken glass. Now it was all about money, pussy, power. They call me sweet boy, capital P. Got a bitch from the Bronx and a hoe from Queens. If you want my time, you pay the fee. Ain't nothing in life come fucking free. Kayla clapped. Rachel laughed. Michael stared at himself in the mirror, dead serious. The dope game started small. Michael knew a guy who knew a guy. He got 5 bags on front. Sold them clean. Bought 10 more. By summer, he had a small clientele. Junkies from Spanish Harlem, drifters, and one white jazz singer from Hell's Kitchen who paid in jewelry and moans. But it was never just about money. It was about momentum. It wasn't a boy anymore. He was sweet boy, the one bitches talked about at beauty salons, the name whispered at pool halls, the man men looked at sideways and women looked at too long. And deep down in the quiet part of his mind where poetry still lived like a stray dog, Michael knew this couldn't last. But for now, he was high, paid, and beautiful. And nobody told him no. Chapter 4, Gasoline Dreams, Part 5, Gold Games and Ghosts, 1975. The money came so fast it stopped making sense. 5s became 10s, 10s became hundreds, and soon Sweet Boy was carrying stacks so thick he stopped counting and just weighed them in his hand like fruit. The girls were eating, the fits were loud, the streets were whispering, but gold don't shine without heat, and the ghosts of what they were kept knocking on their cheap-ass motel door. The new girl's name was Peaches, a light-skinned Harlem girl with a dancer's body, big hazel eyes, and a mouth that stayed slick. She wasn't shy, she wasn't scared. She walked into the room the first night and said, "Who's running this stable?" Michael didn't flinch, just leaned back in his chair, toothpick in his mouth, hair laid like lacquer. "You looking at him, baby?" Peaches smirked. "Then tell me where to stand." Rachel didn't like her. Kayla didn't like that Rachel didn't like her. Michael didn't care either way. More women meant more money. More money meant more silk, more shoes, more shine. He was walking through Harlem in velvet slacks and a half-buttoned cheetah print shirt, rings on every other finger, a gold tooth gleaming every time he said bitch. He'd stroll into the office, light up a cool, and drop a rhyme like he was blessing the room. Sweet boy the pimp, capital P, don't step in my light unless you pay the fee. Got white girls, black girls, one from Belize, and every bitch here worked for me. But it wasn't just business now, it was religion. Michael had rules. No crying, no asking dumb questions, no going out looking busted, no deals without approval. And no, you can't love him. The girls started to call him Pastor Pimp behind his back, not in mockery, in reverence, because he didn't yell, he didn't slap. Not often. He just looked at you like your worth could be erased with one blink. The heroin crept in slow. What started as a weekend float became Tuesday mornings, then Thursday nights. Michael kept his habit low at first, snorted in silence, told himself it was just balance, just stress relief, just part of the game. Even the pastor need communion, he joked once. Kayla didn't laugh. Rachel started talking slick. Your boy nodding off too much, Kayla. He tired. Nah, he high. So who running this game, him or the dope? Kayla and Michael fought more. It wasn't just the drugs. It wasn't just Rachel. It was everything. The tension, the girls, the pressure. The way Michael stopped looking at her like a partner and started looking at her like an employee. He'd say shit like, bitch, I made you. Don't forget that. Or, you ain't gotta love me, just get the bag. And the worst one, every hoe replaceable. But when the sun dipped low and the heroin wore off and the money lay folded neat on the table, Michael would crawl into bed beside her, hold her hand and whisper, ain't nobody ever gonna stand before you. Are you sure? Bitch, you my first church. And she'd believe him. Until the next morning. Chapter 5, Pimp of the Year, Part 1, The Vegas Lights, 1976. The MGM Grand, Las Vegas. Ali versus Norton men in pastel suits, fly girls with gold bangles and velvet ropes stretched across 1,000 sins. Sweet boy hit the city in snakeskin platforms, a powder blue mink, and a wide-brimmed hat that shaded his eyes like a secret. And that's where he met Tiffany, the blonde storm from Texas, the bitch that moved like money and tasted like danger. Second, the strip was lit like a fever dream. Rich. The 76 Eldorado rolled down Las Vegas Boulevard like it owned the damn asphalt. Candy red, chrome bumpers grinning, convertible top down, letting the desert wind twist through Michael's long permed hair, laid to the gods, edges sharp as switchblades. His platform shoes were 6 inches high and snakeskin white. His pants bell-bottomed and creased like gospel paper. His shirt was gold silk, unbuttoned to the navel, and the chains across his chest clanked like coins in a jukebox. He had rings on every finger, pinky diamonds, index rubies, one opal shaped like a tear. And that hat, Lord, that hat, wide-brimmed, feathered, bone white. A cloud of cologne followed him like an entourage. Capital P, bitch, he muttered to the valet. Park it soft. The fight was legendary. Ali floated. Norton rumbled. But Michael was only half watching. His eyes kept drifting toward the front row crowd where the real battle was being fought in silk and skin and big-ass hair. And then he saw her. Tiffany. All Texas. All titties. All trouble. She wore a champagne-colored jumpsuit unzipped halfway down her silicone smile, big blonde hair stacked like frosting, diamonds at her neck, a tan like buttercream, and eyes that scanned the room like a casino camera. She caught him looking, didn't look away. After the fight, they ended up in the same hotel lounge, saxophone moaning in the background, rich men talking too loud, and Tiffany sipping a drink with one pinky lifted high like she was born royalty. Michael leaned against the bar, didn't speak at first, just let her feel his presence. She turned slowly, amused, curious. Well, she drawled, "You don't look like you from round here." "I ain't." "Where you from, sweet thing?" "Mississippi, by way of Harlem. Name's Michael." "You look like a whole lot of trouble. You look like you can afford it." She laughed. Low, real. The kind that gets in your bloodstream. They didn't fuck that night, but they talked. About money, about the South, about fur coats in L.A. and French shoes in Miami, about white men who paid to be shamed and black men who didn't know how to take compliments. Tiffany liked to party, liked to spoil. Said she lived like a rock star and only hung with men who could keep up. Michael said, "Bitch, I set the pace." And just like that, she was hooked. The next day, Rodeo Drive. Michael in a white silk suit, Tiffany in a red Ferrari convertible smoking a joint like it was her birthright. They popped into Gucci, Neiman Marcus, Saks. Michael bought 2 new hats, a mink scarf, and a silver cane. Not because he needed it, but because it looked cold. They flew to Miami 2 days later. Tiffany paid. "You ever had your toes sucked on a yacht, sweet boy?" She purred. "Not yet, bitch, but tonight sound perfect." Back in New York, shit was cracking. Kayla was tired, Peaches was grumbling. No word from Michael in over a week. Rachel was gone, disappeared one night after an argument with Kayla about a trick gone sideways. Kayla held the girls together, but her eyes? They looked distant, like she started planning for life without him. Michael didn't notice. He was busy floating above it all, high on powder, silk, pussy, and praise. He'd call the office once a week. "Y'all holding it down? Kayla, keep these bitches in line. Don't trip, I'll be back soon, just making moves." But the truth was, he wasn't in no rush, because Tiffany was feeding his ego like it was gospel. And sweet boy, he was starting to think he was untouchable. Chapter 5, Pimp of the Year, Part 2, Out of Pocket, late 1976. When you fly too close to the sun, your silk wings don't melt. They catch fire and light the whole city with the sound of your fall. Sweet boy was high, rich, and rotten with pride. But even the baddest bitch can break the rules. And Tiffany, she broke 'em like glass. All it took was one lie, one wrong look, one taste of betrayal, and the whole West Coast fantasy came crashing down. The suite was 2 floors up in the Beverly Wilshire. Marble floors, champagne in the tub, and mirrors that never told the truth. Michael walked in slow, light from the window, turning his perm into fire, white fur dragging behind him like royalty. "Tiff?" No answer. He heard the shower running. He stepped into the bedroom, and that's when he saw it, a wallet on the nightstand, not his. Platinum Amex, business card inside, Martin Chase, Manhattan Investments, and a hotel key, not their hotel. She came out the shower, wrapped in a towel, steam curling off her shoulders like a soft confession. "What's that?" he asked, holding up the card. She froze. "Too long." "It's not what it looks like, baby. You out of pocket, bitch. He's just a friend." "He paying for the room, the clothes, that necklace you got on right now?" She didn't answer. Michael's hand moved before he even knew it. A slap, sharp, open-handed. Diamond ring cutting her cheek. She gasped, not from pain, but from shock. He'd never hit her before, not her. She backed away, eyes wide, lip trembling, and he felt the silence start to rot the room. "Don't ever play me like that again," he said, voice low. "You don't own me, bitch. You wouldn't know what to do if I let you go. Then do it. Say it again." "Let me go." Michael stormed out, fur dragging, anger bubbling. Tiffany was spoiled, reckless. She crossed a line, one you don't come back from. He spent the night at a bar off Sunset, snorting powder in the back with a couple old players and a hooker named Denise who kept saying, "Damn, you fine," every 10 minutes. When he came back, the suite was empty. Every drawer cleared. Tiffany was gone. No note, no call, just a void where her perfume used to linger. He flew back to New York 2 days later, eyes sunken, mood foul, broken all the ways he couldn't show. The Eldorado was still parked. The office still reeked of old cigarettes. Kayla opened the door, arms crossed, new weight in her hips. No smile. You back? Yeah. That bitch leave you? She ain't my bitch. No, but I was. Silence. I got the books balanced. Peach is still making runs. I paid rent early. Rachel? She gone. Strung out somewhere in the Bronx. We ain't heard from her in a month. Michael nodded. Good job, baby. Don't baby me. He looked around. The office felt small now. Cheap, empty. He sniffed once, wiped his nose. Got it connected in L.A. now. Big plug, cocaine, good shit. You back to that? We gonna be rich. You already rich. Then we gonna be richer, bitch. Kayla shook her head. You high right now? I'm focused. No. You just scared of being normal. They didn't talk much after that. She cooked. He paced. She cleaned. He rhymed to himself in the mirror. That night, he touched her like a stranger touches a keepsake. Soft, unsure, almost reverent. And when he came, he whispered, I ain't never leaving you. And she whispered back, that's the part I'm scared of. Chapter 5, Pimp of the Year, Part 3, New Connects, Old Demons, 1981. Harlem. Reagan's in office. Crack ain't hit heavy yet, but you can feel the shift in the rent, in the weather, in the way people look at each other on the street. Sweet boy's suit still sharp, his hair still laid, his words still slick. But Harlem don't care about yesterday's shine. The corners getting crowded, the rules getting sloppy. And the devil ain't in the powder. He in the price of keeping the throne. The billboard on 125th read Reagan, Let's make America great again. Michael spat near it. Ain't never been great for us, bitch. He was wearing a cream leather trench, his perm long rolled at the ends now, no more wave. White turtleneck under gold rope chains, bell-bottom slacks with a crease so sharp it looked ironed by God. But something was off, not with the look, with the vibe. He could feel it in the blocks. The air was colder. The tricks were meaner. The young pimps had names like Ice, Rome, Flash, Fast Boys. No suits, just Adidas gold fronts and razor blades in their mouths. They wasn't talking game no more. They were talking numbers. Sweet boy old school, one of them said. Michael heard it from Peaches. It didn't make him mad, but it etched a line in his chest that didn't go away. Kayla still ran the stable, still had her sugar daddies, 2 white men from Midtown that paid her like she had a key to heaven. But her smile came slower now. Her questions came sharper. Where you going? Why you spending so much? Who's the new girl in the hallway? She wasn't jealous. They're just done pretending. They had 3 girls now. Peaches still sharp, still hustling. A new girl named Yolanda, fresh from the Bronx, thick like a storm, face like a warning, a Puerto Rican chick called Marisol, who barely spoke but moved like a panther and loved her money folded. Michael liked to walk them down the track himself sometimes, not to supervise, to remind the block who still ran it. But the cars that used to slow down, they kept rolling now. He'd sit in the diner across from the office, sip burnt coffee and watch. Sometimes he saw new players post on his corners. Sometimes he didn't say nothing. Sometimes he sent Peaches to say something for him. Rachel came back once, walked in out of nowhere, skinny as a switch, lips scabbed, high as rent. Kayla screamed at her. Michael just looked, didn't say shit. Rachel cried. Then asked for $10. Michael gave her 5. She never came back. At night, Michael stood by the window of the motel room and talked to himself in rhyme. Still sharp, still gold, but there was tired in the rhythm now. Sweet boy, the name, capital P. These bitches been paid, but I still ain't free. Kayla lay on the bed staring at the ceiling. You ever think about quitting? She asked one night. What I'm gonna do, work at a gas station? People change, not me, bitch. I was born this way. This ain't a hustle, it's a prophecy. She didn't argue, but she didn't agree either. Chapter 5, Pimp of the Year, Part 4, The Fade 1982. Sweet Boy still talked like a sermon and dressed like sin dipped in gold, but Harlem was growling. Crack hadn't swallowed the block yet, but his breath was thick in the alleyways. And that night at the underground club, when they handed Michael that Pimp of the Year plaque, it felt like a crown made of rusted metal, shiny on the outside, sharp underneath. The streets still clapped for him, but the echo sounded different. The party was in a rented basement on Lenox and 132nd, under a Jamaican record store. They called it the Freeze because the AC never worked and the walls sweated. Sweet Boy walked in at midnight sharp, Kayla on his arm, Peaches 2 steps behind, and Yolanda in a blue fur she stole off a white woman's back in Queens. The room stopped. Men nodded, women gasped. Michael's outfit was a 3-piece crushed velvet burgundy suit, open-toe crocodile sandals, toe rings gleaming like teeth, and a black silk scarf tied around his neck like a magician's cape. He didn't walk in. He floated. "That Sweet Boy," someone whispered. "He got the whole city in his back pocket." The award came halfway through the second DJ set. The MC, a round man with a cane and a yellow suit, raised the mic. Harlem's finest, the man with the mouth, the walk, the women, the rhymes, the rep. "Ladies and gentlemen, Pimp of the Year, Sweet Boy." Applause cracked the walls. Michael stepped up slow, grinned wide, took the plaque in one hand like it weighed nothing. "If you ain't got no hoe, you ain't got no show," he said, voice slick with charm. "Y'all know my motto, pay the fee, you fuck with me, capital P, bitch," crowd roared. Cameras flashed. Peaches kissed his cheek. Yolanda rolled her eyes. Kayla just looked at him like she'd seen this movie before and knew how it ended. That night, Marisol didn't come back. Last time anyone saw her, she was walking toward a black Buick with tinted windows and a Pennsylvania plate. Michael sent Peaches to ask around. No answer, just silence. And silence in this game meant bad shit. Kayla started sleeping in the second room. She said it was for space, said he snored too much. But really, it was the late nights, the new girls, the men she didn't recognize at the office anymore. "I ain't mad," she told him once over eggs and burnt toast. "I just don't know who you are when you come in high, talking in rhymes, smelling like motel soap and other women." Michael didn't respond, just lit a cigarette. Then came the raid. It happened fast. One cold Thursday, no sirens, just boots and flashlights. Peaches caught a charge. Yolanda ran barefoot down the fire escape. Michael wasn't there. He was at a bar in the Bronx, talking nonsense to a jazz singer with a missing tooth. Kayla got cuffed, spent 14 hours in central booking. When Michael bailed her out, she didn't speak the whole ride home. At the motel, she threw her purse down, looked at him through lashes heavy with sleep and tears. "You gonna get us all killed." He tried to laugh it off. "Ain't nobody touching Sweet Boy." "Yeah," she said, walking past him. "That's what ghosts say, too." Chapter 6, Fallout and Felonies. Part 2, Product over Pleasure. 1984. A man can only sell so many dreams before he wants to buy one for himself. Sweet Boy had the cars, the coats, the women. But it wasn't enough. The streets were getting crowded, and the pimps were getting younger. So when Janet slid that number across the table with a lazy smile and a whisper about pure white powder, Michael saw more than dope. He saw legacy. The plug's name was Chulo, but nobody said it to his face. He was Dominican, barely 30, all silk shirts and stone-faced stares, had a gold tooth shaped like the number 7, and 2 goons who never blinked. Janet met him at a poker game in Queens. She introduced him to Michael at an after-hours spot behind a soul food joint. The conversation was short. You want weight? I got it. You got money? I want it. Just don't talk too much. Don't use too much. And don't get caught. Michael just nodded, draped in his cream-colored trench coat, black gloves, and maroon fedora with a peacock feather. He looked like he already owned a cartel. The first drop was small, a test, 4 bricks, pure, soft as powdered sugar, gone in a week. Janet handled the numbers. Kayla stayed quiet until the 3rd week when she walked into the motel kitchen and saw Michael bagging dope with his shirt off, humming Curtis Mayfield. You serious? About what? You bringing that shit here now? It's just business, baby. No, pimp is business. This is death. Michael didn't raise his voice, didn't blink. Everything we do been killing something. Time, trust, spirit. This just pays better. She didn't argue. Not because he was right, because she was tired. Money came in so fast it needed a calendar just to sit still. Sweet Boy had a loft in Harlem, a condo in Queens, and a rented penthouse in Miami with mirrors on the ceiling and a white baby grand piano nobody played. He had 3 new cars in 2 months, and a red BMW 733i, a custom gold Benz 450 SL convertible, and a black-on-black 84 Fleetwood Brougham, wide as a boat and meaner than truth. The women multiplied. Janet ran uptown, smooth as butter. Kayla worked nights and came home to strange perfume on the sheets and loud whispers in the hallway. She didn't fight it anymore. She just filed it away in her chest, under shit I'll never forgive. Michael started snorting in the morning, snorting before meetings, snorting while getting head. At first it was light, then it wasn't. One night, Kayla caught him talking to himself in the mirror, full suit on, 3 a.m. P is for profit, pussy, paradise, protection. I'm the priest of the pipe dream, baby. They pray to me in stilettos. She closed the door without a word. And yet, the dream kept expanding. More weight, more girls, more danger. The streets whispered, but Michael wasn't listening. Because money is loud when it's stacking fast, and pride is louder when you think it makes you untouchable. Chapter 6, Fallout and Felonies Part 3, The Setup. 1986. Every empire ends in silence. Not a bang. Not always. Sometimes it's a smile, a handshake, a number written on a napkin by a woman in a low-cut dress. Sometimes it's a fake name and a briefcase full of fake money. Sweet Boy had the game on lock. But the streets never sleep, and the feds don't blink. It started with a dinner. A quiet one. Janet booked a table at Windows on the World, top of the World Trade Center. Private. Expensive. Sweet Boy wore his camel-colored suede blazer, rings stacked like armor. Janet wore ivory silk slit high up her thigh like it had somewhere to be. Across from them sat a man named Daniel Price, or so he said. He had Wall Street teeth and a politician's smile. Talked about opportunities and distribution models like he was planning a TED Talk. Janet made the connection. She said he moved weight through yachts and art auctions. Her big fish, Michael listened. He nodded. He quoted himself like scripture. You don't move product, Mr. Price. You move purpose. I sell power. I sell paradise and powder. I sell dreams. But make no mistake, I don't dream. Daniel smiled. Michael should have known right then. Nobody ever smiles that much at a real criminal. The deal was set for 3 nights later, a condo in Midtown. Briefcase for briefcase. Michael brought 2 bricks. Daniel brought 50 grand in cash and 3 feds in the hallway. The moment the briefcase snapped shut, the door kicked in. NYPD, hands where I can see 'em. Michael didn't run, didn't twitch. He just raised both hands and muttered, bitch set me up. They hit him with intent to distribute, conspiracy to traffic, in possession of controlled substance and racketeering. He sat in central booking for 36 hours, still wearing his suit, still rhyming under his breath. Kayla came to see him. Her eyes were dead. She didn't yell. She just slid the envelope of cash across the bulletproof glass and said, "It's all I got left." Michael took a plea deal. 10 years. With good behavior, maybe 7. He looked at the judge and said, "See you when the world remember what style looked like." The courtroom laughed. The judge didn't. As they cuffed him and walked him away, Janet was nowhere to be found, not in the gallery, not in the parking lot, not in the city. She disappeared like smoke in silk. Chapter 6, Fallout and Felonies, Part 3, The Setup Revised, 1986. The empire cracked not from war, but from a whisper, a dinner table, a handshake, a trap. Sweet Boy thought he was leveling up, stepping into global distribution. Instead, he stepped straight into a federal sting. But prison? It couldn't break him. Not a man who already turned dust into diamonds. And even caged sweet boys stayed sweet. The setup came dressed in silk. Janet booked a table at Windows on the World, top of the Trade Center, skyline glowing like gold teeth. Across from them sat Daniel Price, salt and pepper hair, watch worth a car note, all that fake charm white men use when they were about to fuck you for sport. Michael smelled the game. But greed, that bitch, makes even kings blink. Daniel talked yachts, off-the-book shipments, European clients. All it took was a nod and a smile. And Michael, he smiled back. "I don't dream, Mr. Price. I sell 'em." The trap was sprung 3 days later in a high-rise off 59th. Michael brought 2 bricks, smooth as flour. Daniel brought 50 grand and 3 wire-wearing agents waiting behind the wall. The second Michael clicked the case shut, the walls exploded. "NYPD, down on the ground." Michael didn't flinch, didn't run, didn't even blink. He turned his head slow and muttered, "Bitch set me up. Charges stacked fast, distribution, intent to traffic, conspiracy, racketeering." Michael sat in central booking, suited still, smirking. Kayla showed up with a fat envelope, the last of their stash. "This all I got left." He didn't say thanks. He just nodded, kissed the glass, and said, "Don't cry. I'll write you sweet." The plea deal was 10 years. He took it, didn't argue, didn't drag his feet, just said to the judge, "Put it in ink. I'll do my time sharp." Prison didn't break him. It hated him, because Sweet Boy never faded. Even behind bars, he walked the yard like a runway. He kept his hair long, slicked back, trimmed clean, kept a mirror in his cell and a comb he carved out of toothbrush plastic, kept poems written in cursive under his mattress, and he never went without, 'cause the bitches, they still loved him. Tiffany wrote from Dallas, "Still thinking about you in that long mink. Hope the commissary sweet baby," enclosed $100 and a picture of her new breasts. And Janet sent no return address, but her letters came typed. "Don't talk to anyone, don't trust anyone, your name's still ringing. Keep it clean, keep it royal." Enclosed crisp money orders, sometimes $300 a pop. And Kayla, the real one, came every month. She brought books, magazines, told him how Reagan was killing the hospitals, how she was taking nursing classes. But mostly, she just looked at him. Michael had more food than most, more clothes, more stamps. He smelled like cocoa butter and conviction, and that's why they hated him. The guards side-eyed him. The inmates whispered, "Who the fuck he think he is? Ain't no real man keep his hair that pretty in here. Light-skinned nigga acting like he on stage." And Reggie, especially Reggie, a brick-built brawler from Queens, swore Michael pimped his sister back in '79. He wanted blood. But Michael, he stayed smooth, spoke soft, never dropped the act. "You don't punch up, bitch. You pay up." He cooked in the kitchen. He wrote poems for other inmates to send to their baby mamas. He stayed clean. He served 7 years like a myth that never aged. Chapter 6, Fallout and Felonies, Part 4, Hard Time, Soft Memories. 1987 to 1993. Time don't crawl in prison, it paces. Cold concrete, loud shoes, dead eyes. But Sweet Boy moved like he never left the boulevard. His hair stayed waved. His walk stayed mean. The letters kept him warm. The poems kept him sane. And the ghosts of his past, one in particular, came looking for a reckoning. Michael got up early, every morning like it was clockwork. The same way he used to rise to count his girls, now he rose to scrub the prison kitchen floor, hands wrinkled from mop water, breath fogging from broken heaters. He still wore his pride like fur, though. Even in state green, Sweet Boy stood out. His hair was always greased and waved, laid down in tight finger ridges. He carved his own comb from a toothbrush handle and kept a mirror clipped inside his locker. He kept his skin lotioned. He walked the yard like a man with a silk robe on, even when frost cracked the air. They called him Hollywood on the inside. He answered to it. What kept him alive? The letters. They came in different perfume, different handwriting, different weights. Tiffany wrote in pink ink, sprayed her envelopes with something flowery and wild. Dallas is boring, baby. These cowboys ain't got your tongue. Bought a new Benz today. Thought of you while the leather hugged me. Enclosed $100, sometimes $200. Always signed, your rich bitch in boots. Janet never said much. Just cool, typed notes on crisp paper. Moving numbers. Market's good. Stay silent. Stay smart. No kisses. Just clean bills folded inside. But Kayla's letters? They had weight. Long handwritten, usually on lined notebook paper, sometimes creased like she'd held it too long before sending. Mike, it's cold in this apartment, but I keep the heat low to save. I'm still in school. Nursing's hard, but I ain't quitting. I got your name taped on my mirror, reminds me not to settle. They don't make 'em like you no more. Stay safe. I love you. Always. Sometimes she sent pictures. Older now. Softer, tired around the eyes, but still Kayla. He kept their letters in a plastic bag tucked behind his mattress, pulled them out when the nights got too long, pulled out his notebook too. Michael wrote poems, some romantic, some violent, some soaked in guilt. He'd trade them to other inmates for stamps or snacks or just silence. His words started to circulate, copied, whispered, even tattooed into skin. Ain't no sun in the cell, so I keep it in my chest. Bitch, I ain't broken. I'm just resting my flex. But peace don't last, not inside. There was one dude, Reggie, from Queens. Built like a truck, voice like gravel. Kept eyeing Michael from across the yard. Wouldn't speak, just glare. One day in the laundry line, he stepped too close. You that Sweet Boy? Michael didn't blink. Depends who's asking. I'm Rachel's brother. Michael stopped folding. That name cut deeper than the razors they snuck in Bibles. Rachel, curvy, wild, dark-haired girl from Cali. Used to walk for Michael. Used to laugh all the time. Last time he saw her, she was all bones and sores, lips too dry to smile. She died 2 winters after she ran off. Overdose, needle in her lap. He remembered. He remembered it all. She died, you know. Behind you, behind the shit you sold and the shit you said. Michael stayed calm. She made choices. Reggie's eyes darkened. So did you. He walked off, but not before saying, I get out before you do. Next time I see you, dead man. Michael kept folding, kept breathing, but his hands shook the rest of the day. Time moved like rust. Michael kept writing, kept dreaming, but the walls were growing tighter. Even the letters came slower. Tiffany got married, Janet disappeared, only Kayla stayed. One last visit before his release. She wore blue scrubs, hair tied back, fuller in the waist, tired in the smile. He sat across from her in that cold booth, watching her fingers tremble around the styrofoam cup. "You still talk like you on the track," she said, half laughing. "I am the track, baby." She looked away. "You ever think about quitting?" "Quitting what?" "All of it. The game, the bitches, the mask." Michael leaned forward. "And be what, Kayla? A man who used to shine?" "I am the shine." She looked like she might cry, but didn't. "You get out next month, I'll be there." He nodded. "Wear red. I want you looking like temptation." Chapter 6, Fallout and Felonies. Part 5, Freedom's Just Another Hustle. 1993, 7 years down. Out on good behavior. But the streets don't wait. The girls were younger, the money moved faster, and Harlem ain't clap when Michael came home. They just looked at him like another story walking. But Sweet Boy still had his mouth, still had his walk, still had Kayla for a little while. The gates buzzed. Michael stepped out slow. State greens traded for a tailored camel coat, pressed khakis, leather shoes that Kayla brought that morning. She stood beside the old Crown Vic she borrowed from her cousin, eyes hidden behind thick shades, long red coat blowing in the wind. "Told you I wear red," she said, voice flat but present. "You look like sin," he grinned. She didn't smile. He took her hand anyway. Harlem wasn't the same. The brownstones had bars on the windows, but now there were new white folks walking dogs outside them. Corner stores had cameras. Kids wore headphones instead of boomboxes. Michael hated it. "Used to be music playing on every block," he said, squinting. "Now it's just wires and whispers." "Times change," Kayla said. "So do pimps. But not this one." Kayla's apartment was small, clean. A certificate from her nursing program hung over the TV. Michael took a deep breath. "Smells like discipline in here." "It's called work. Never heard of it." She gave him a look, one he'd seen before, but she cooked for him anyway. Let him shower, let him sleep, let him press his body into hers that night while she bit her lip and held back all the words she wanted to scream. The next morning he was gone by 10. Not gone, just out on Malcolm X Boulevard, talking shit, shaking hands, seeing who still remembered him. Some did, some didn't. The old heads nodded. The new ones laughed. He tried recruiting again. 2 new girls, both young. Too young, Kayla said, too naive. But Michael didn't see girls. He saw product. He saw comeback. Nights turned into weeks. Weeks turned into wait. The old glamour started to wear off. He was getting high again. Not heavy, not junky, just enough to feel like himself again. Kayla watched, waited. One night she sat at the kitchen table in silence while he counted a roll of ones. "You still think this is the life? This is life." "Not to me." He looked up, saw something new in her face. Distance, cold. "You leaving?" "I already did. I just hadn't packed." She was gone by the weekend. Left a note on the bed. "I loved you when you had nothing, but I won't stay for less than that." Michael didn't cry. He didn't chase her. He just put on his coat, waved his hair, walked back to Malcolm X, and stood there, talking that same old shit. "You gotta pay a fee to fuck with me, bitch." Nobody stopped. Nobody listened. But Sweet Boy kept talking anyway. Chapter 7, The Legend Fades. Part 1, Yesterday's ice don't shine today. Late 1990s, the curls are gone. The silk is wrinkled. The words still rhyme, but fewer care to listen. Sweet Boy once ruled Harlem with his walk, his talk, and a coat that swept the sidewalk like royalty. Now, he's a story people whisper when they pass 125th and wonder whatever happened to the game. Michael still stood on Malcolm X BLVD like it owed him something. He kept the same coat, now ragged at the sleeves. The snakeskin boots were scuffed, the gold on his pinky ring dulled, but he walked with the same swing in his hips, the same lazy grin tucked behind half-burnt blunts. You gotta pay the fee, you fuck with me, bitch. He mumbled it now, mostly to himself. Nobody paid the fee. They barely paid him any mind. The game had changed. The new pimps wore hoodies and Timberlands. They didn't rhyme. They didn't wave their hair. They didn't read poetry or quote the scriptures and Iceberg Slim in the same breath. They moved fast, loud, digital. Michael didn't understand it, didn't care to. He still flipped through his old address book like the numbers meant something. Most were disconnected, some were dead. The girls, they were gone. Kayla, Janet, Tiffany, even Vera had vanished. Michael had a new one now, young thing from the Bronx who ran with a pipe in her purse and called him Unc. She paid when she felt like it, brought him food when she didn't want to hear him beg. He called her Peach to second. She rolled her eyes every time. He still wore silk shirts, faded, torn at the collar. He kept his fingernails clean, still slicked his thinning hair back with water and Vaseline. But the mirror told the truth. The man looking back wasn't Sweet Boy. He was just Michael. Tired, thinner, hollow in the cheeks, veins stiff, fingers twitching when the high wore off. He still kept a small notebook, still wrote lines. Was a king, now I'm seen, but not heard. Just a blur. He sold one of his poems to a college kid who wanted to write a paper on street culture, made $20. Felt like 20,000. Sometimes he'd go stand outside the old brownstone where he used to live with Kayla. Just stood there, smoking, watching the window that used to be theirs. Sometimes he whispered, "Bitch, I told you I'd never leave." Like she was still there. Harlem moved on. Music changed. The beat got louder. But Michael, he stayed right there, still strutting, still quoting, still fading, a ghost in mink, a relic of rhythm, an urban legend with no one left to remember the song. Chapter 7, The Legend Fades, Part 2, A Cold Day for Sweet Boy, 2001. Harlem ain't soft, never has been, but every so often a shadow falls in the shape of something it used to love. Sweet Boy once lit these streets on fire, now he's just smoke. And on one bitter morning, with a busted lighter in his pocket and a whisper in his mouth, Harlem took the last piece of him. It was February, cold enough to cut. Michael had on that same coat, patched now, the mink trim stiff with old rain and city dust. His fingers shook. The wind was disrespectful. He was talking to no one. Standing outside the liquor store near Lenox and 124th, asking for $1, not with his hands, with his mouth. Used to ride Benzes down this same block, bitch. I ain't asking, I'm collecting. Pay respect. No one stopped. No one listened. Just a nod from an old head pushing a cart full of cans. Michael staggered to the corner. He pulled out his notebook, tried to write, but the pen wouldn't work. He bit the cap, rubbed his fingers, tried again. Nothing. He looked up at the sky like maybe God had changed the ink. Then he chuckled. Guess even he got tired of my rhymes. He leaned against the brick wall, slid down slowly, legs folding under him like paper. The world blurred. The sounds turned into static. Somewhere in the static he heard her voice, "Kayla, you ever think about quitting?" Then another voice, higher, wilder, "Tiffany, sweet boy, I swear you got glitter in your blood." Then soft, tired, "Janet, stay smart, stay silent." And one more, his mama, "Odessa, you came from nothing, boy. Don't you let this world tell you different." Michael closed his eyes, pulled the notebook to his chest, whispered one last line, "You gotta pay the fee." A kid found him around noon, didn't touch him, just looked. Told a cop there was a man asleep by the wall who wasn't breathing right. They loaded him into the back of an ambulance, slow. The paramedic said his name out loud once because it was written on the inside cover of the notebook. Michael Thomas. That night, on the same corner, two men argued about who Sweet Boy was. He used to run this whole strip, man. white girls, black girls, all types. Nah, you bugging. That was somebody else. He just talks slick. Ain't nobody for real. A woman passing by lit a cigarette and said, "Y'all talking about Sweet Boy? He was the game." And just like that, he lived again. Main characters: Michael Sweetboy Thomas, light-skinned biracial man born in early 1960s Mississippi to a black prostitute mother and an unknown white father. When sharp, poetic, charismatic, speaks in rhymes, develops a flamboyant pimp persona, and rises from poverty to power through charm, sex appeal, and manipulation, and then becomes obsessed with status, style, and control, and ultimately addicted, alone, and broke by the 2000s. His signature line, "You gotta pay the fee to fuck with me, bitch." Kayla Green, white teenager from Mississippi, daughter of a racist mayor, falls in love with Michael during high school, and bold, rebellious, sensual, and money-hungry, and supports Michael emotionally and financially in the early stages. Eventually becomes his top woman, running the stable, and becomes disillusioned and leaves after years of abuse and betrayal. Later becomes a nurse, Odessa Thomas, Michael's mother, former waitress turned sex worker in the Jim Crow South, and hardened by racism, poverty, and desperation, becomes pregnant by the butcher's son and raises Michael alone. Her struggle shapes Michael's worldview on women and survival. Secondary characters: Rachel, voluptuous brunette from California, an experienced prostitute who introduces Kayla to street-level sex work and heroin, and helps set Michael's early New York stable, and then becomes strung out and eventually dies from overdose. Her death haunts Michael later. Tiffany, a blonde, rich, wild Texas girl with rock star energy, and meets Michael at a Vegas boxing match. Anna lives fast, sleeps with wealthy men, and shows Michael high-end hustling. Introduces him to cocaine and luxury excess. Then disappears suddenly after Michael strikes her for going out of pocket. And then continues to support him through prison anonymously. Janet, and the baddest bitch on the planet, knocked by Michael after he wins Pimp of the Year in LA. Strategic, cold, and professional. Ian helps grow his stable and earns big money. Ian later disappears without a trace but sends prison money quietly. Vera, another girl in Michael's mid-level stable, and loyal for a time but fades out after Kayla begins to dominate the inner circle. Peaches 2. And Early Peaches, a younger girl in the 72nds era New York stable. Ann Peaches II, a younger post-prison girl from the Bronx who only halfway respects Michael, calling him "you sick," symbolizes the new era that has no reverence for old pimps.